Welcome everybody to this week's Take Charge of Your Life discussion, where we give you tips and tricks on how to live more empowered in your mindset, live more free in your soul, and live more healthy in your body. My name's Tish Taylor, and I'm from Growth Centric Living. My mission is to not only empower adults and mentors, but also to have an impact on future generations so that they may learn and be further along on their growth journeys than when we started with, so that their subconscious is not as trained and as difficult as I found mine to be honest, on my growth journey. Anyway, and this is Roberta, my co-host.
Hi, I'm Roberta from Wake Up to Life Wellness. And like Tish was sharing, we have a shared compassion to really help people transform in every area of their life. And along with that, I do the holistic healing as a holistic health practitioner, and more excited all the time for people waking up to the reality that they can live a life unhindered by not only physical limitations, but mental and soul realm issues also.
Both Roberta and I are trained and certified elite mentorship trainers under our mentor, who has helped phenomenally along our growth journey, Mr. Peter Sage. For those of you that aren't aware of who he is a globally recognized motivational speaker known for his deep understanding of human behavior and self-mastery. Having spoken in over 63 countries worldwide, he is dedicated to empowering individuals to achieve their highest potential through personal growth and transformational teachings. And Roberta and I aspire to have a similar impact in helping with his mission to grow consciousness. So our agenda for our talks is to show you a little bit of a video of his, and then we're going to break it down into our agenda, which is, again, to give you tips and tricks on how to live more empowered in your mindset, live more healthy within your physical body, and live more free in the soul realm of life.
Excellent. So our topic for today is entitled, We Live in an Intelligent Universe, and we'll be watching a 60-second reel from Peter, our mentor. And today we're going to be talking about the conversation that bridges two worldviews. We have the materialist perspective, which is everything that is predetermined in the universe, people that think that way, that everything's mechanical and it's governed by only the physical world. And then we have the consciousness-based perspective, where life is probabilistic. We can expect synchronicities or the unexplained, that we are guided and responsive, and we're emerging from a deeper intelligence woven into the fabric of our reality. So then we're talking about the non-physical world, right? And Peter Sage teaches that our evolution depends on learning to operate from both, but ultimately awakening into the awareness that we are not alone in the universe. We are supported by it, and we are in partnership with it. So today we're going to explore this through our mind, body, and soul framework. I'm going to share the video.
One of the most epic battles in the history of trying to solve the conundrum of the universe is between the materialists that have a deterministic point of view, like everything is predetermined, everything can be figured out based upon forces and mass and motion, and those that come from a more philosophical place of understanding that life is probabilistic, that it's more of a right brain subjective experience than a left brain hardened fact. So which side are you on? Because no matter where you are, there's one thing that is undeniable. We live in an intelligent universe that is driven by a rule set. Now, if you're only focused on the physical rules, physics, chemistry, biology, which kind of govern physical matter reality, then you're pretty on your own in the outer world. But if you understand that if the universe is intelligent, there is also a non-physical rule set, would that pique your curiosity as to know more? Leave a comment below.
So this lesson today really lives initially in our mindset version of our talk, in how to live empowered. And, if you believe only in the physical and you think that life is governed by these physical laws like chemistry, biology, motion, etc., then everything rests on your shoulders. You're all alone. You need to hustle. You need to force. You need to figure out. You need to try to control your life in the best way that you possibly can. But if you recognize that we live in an intelligent universe, and I believe it to be ultimately friendly, then with this rule set, you can live empowered. You're switching from needing to control and figure out, exactly how to get things the way you want it, to being a co-creator of your life, to knowing that nothing is fixed. We live in a world of possibility or probability, as Peter explained it. In this framework, your thoughts, intentions, integrity, and even your emotional state, they're all inputs into a responsive system, which means that you're influencing things. The outcome is based on you, not based on a scientific strategy or formula that will always bring the same outcome based on A, B, C, etc. Empowerment comes when we start to align with this universal intelligence, not try to dominate the world we live in. You're no longer fighting life. Instead, we're learning how to work with it. It becomes more of a game, I like to think of it as.
I love that we're no longer fighting life. That sums up pretty much my whole existence. I mean, all of us were taught, right, to live in the non-physical or the outer world, the physical world, and that's all there is. I mean, we may have some faith and belief in the non-physical or the supernatural, but I find that after decades of being in the spiritual truths of biblical truths and being in churches and things, I didn't have this depth of understanding and alignment with the non-physical that I do since I did the Elite Mentorship Forum. That just opened up so much more understanding of how this actually works and that how we can influence. It's not just a random, well, I hope God hears me and answers my prayer or helps me. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's up to him. It's his will. It really, I just don't see it that way at all anymore, because I can influence reality by how I show up in the world. And so that just literally changes everything in my world, in my universe, and how I wake up every day. And the more I can train myself to let go of control and thinking I can, change the outer world by force or change people by, getting them to do what I want or whatever, the more we let go of all that control, the easier life gets. It's just a relief. It's like, wow, like you said, we can then play the game of life and enjoy it and be excited for what's coming because we are helping create it. So we have an idea that, hey, if I want this, I can focus my attention on that. I can set my, sights on things that I want to create in my life that are for the good of myself and others. And the universe is absolutely supporting me to bring about things that are for the highest good, of everyone involved. So it's like having my own personal support system at all times and just unlimited support, really. And so anything's possible, truly.
Well said. I had a similar experience in that growing up, I really wanted to believe in this magic and this power. I also grew up Catholic, so there was that religious faith thing that miracles could come true, but I didn't really understand it until I had this like solid mindset shift of, no, it's universal, and whatever we choose to call it is okay. And what this means, though, is that there is this power outside, and we do have influence over it. It's not a predetermined fixed thing that somebody else has chosen for me, or that, like I said, this solid formula. For me, especially as a parent, this led me to when, you told your kids that they can do anything. This foundational mindset is what really made me leap all in and believe that that's really true. Actually, I really mean that now when I say that wholeheartedly. We can do anything if we have this type of mindset and understand that there is this powerful supernatural universe on our side helping us.
Absolutely. And mindset truly is everything. Because if I wake up with a belief that everything's going to go wrong today, or nothing ever works out, or I just keep working hard and I don't ever get what I want, then my whole being is going to respond to that, and it's going to align with that, and that's what's going to show up in my outer world. But if I can wake up with a whole new belief system anchored inside of me that I'm like, nobody can talk me out of it. Now it's like you said, you can say it with full conviction that this is what I see in life. And the more I do it, even though it's been challenging sometimes, because our old thoughts really do want to pull us back into what's familiar. And man, I've had that program for decades. So it's been a little bit of commitment and intention to turn that around and shift it to another direction of travel. But it gets easier. And the more we do it, the more it just becomes real. And like I can see things and enjoy things that I never could before, because I was always waiting for some major shift or wondering if it was ever going to happen the way I wanted it to happen. And now as I align with the friendly universe and the intelligence of the universe, it's just like I can yeah, enjoy life, because I do trust and know that there is a friendly universe that's supporting me and really does want me to live abundantly and to really fulfill my purpose here and my desires. So yeah, and like you said, influencing your kids, that's huge for them to have a different mindset like that. That's massive.
The this lesson here that we're talking about is from module 13 in our ultimate kind of transformation program called the Elite Mentorship Forum. And so belongs to what we call the legacy. And that ultimately is what my desire is, to leave a legacy so that, you know, my children, if I can help them to believe they really can do anything, I feel like I will have, succeeded. And, you know, when I say that, I don't just mean my children either, really. In honesty, I hope to empower lots of different generations and anyone that we kind of come across with. So on that note, if you yourself are struggling and you're kind of like on the fence where, you know, Roberta and I just explained that we were at one time in our lives of, I want to believe, but I'm not sure. I don't know how to kind of like solidify this for you. Our tip for this week in the mindset is to get out your journal and ask yourself, how can I live more aligned with the universe today? And then I want you to release control. This isn't a conscious thought exercise where you censor your thoughts and write down kind of what you think. Instead, just flow. Just start letting that pen write and feel the universe flow through with you. You might be surprised. Sometimes this exercise, I've done it a few times, feels a little bit awkward, but this will train your your nervous system to trust in the intelligence instead of trying to put effort. You don't need to come up with all of the answers. And you might be surprised at what shows up on the page. I know for sure I have started journaling and not known what the answer was going to be, and then come out of it being like, oh, okay, that. And I know I didn't have those thoughts before, so it had to have come from somewhere. So this really helped me trust and lean into that intuition and this idea that we're talking about, that there is a non-physical rule set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that when we get quiet, that, you know, that information is already there. It's just that most of us live such noisy lives and we haven't been trained how to quiet the mind to hear that non-physical communicating with us all the time. Like there's a constant flow of resources and solutions and ideas and, you know, fun, creative things coming towards us, but we just don't hear it. And that's really one of the powerful things of this work, is that new mindset of being able to know how to do that, you know, really leaning into and taking advantage of it. Otherwise, we're leaving an entire dynamic of our life on the table and never experiencing it, never living into that, and kind of going through the motions and wondering why, you know, we don't feel fulfilled at the end of the day. So that leads us into our living healthy in the physical body. And when we live in alignment with the rules of both the worlds that we talked about, so the materialistic and then the consciousness-based one, this is where people get confused sometimes. So on the one hand, we have the physical reality, which does operate by predictable rules. You know, we know that if we eat certain things, we're going to feel a certain way, or we're going to have a certain outcome, right? If we overeat all the time, we know that the outcome is overweight. If we don't exercise, we know that the outcome is going to be we have weakness, or, you know, fatigue in the body, or lack of inspiration or motivation or energy, right? So we have things that happen in the physical world that are predictable, and we know that. And so we have to play with those rules too. We have to be in alignment with it. We can't just say, well, I'm going to never eat again or never drink water. I'm just going to jump into the spiritual realm of the non-physical. And I mean, I would love to do that. It's like, but I think that's for when we transition to the other side. I think that's when we'll have that full experience. We cannot meditate our way out of dehydration or self-love, our way out of chronic nutritional deficiencies. There has to be that physical rule set put in place to deal with the physical body. But then on the other hand, our biology is not just physical or mechanical. It's also responsive to the non-physical influence that we give it. So when we talk about, you know, mindset and how it influences people's health, we all know people, or have heard testimonies of people who cured themselves of cancer, or, you know, were able to completely overcome something that was, you know, they were told they'd never survive, and it wasn't, you know, there was no cure, but we know that they did. And how did they do that? It was mindset. It was getting into that intelligent, powerful space that we have access to, and really aligning with the power of it. So our body changes based on our emotional state. So if we, you know, wake up, like I said, tired and irritated or negative, our body feels that too, right? Our cells hear every thought we think. So if we wake up with negative expectations, that's pretty much what our, being is going to gravitate towards. We're literally creating those obstacles and that resistance in the outer world. If we don't feel safe, like we're stressed all the time, we're going to attract certain, experiences into our life to keep that going, that cycle going inside of us. So, like I said, that's why two people with the same diagnosis could have completely different outcomes based on, what they're thinking and feeling in their emotional state and what they're doing in their physical realm.
I think the body is definitely one of those spaces that if you need proof that both of these rule sets do exist, here in your body is where it is the most obvious. The examples Roberta has given us, and I think about, kids or the placebo effect, where, how many experiments have we done where scientists are like, what? So like, I just give you a pill, and some people that got sugar, literally sugar, they know, they've tested it, they know what they gave them, and they still get cured or have the same kind of reaction that the people that actually got the medicine was. Like, how else can we explain that? When kids, it becomes even that much more obvious. Does a Band-Aid actually like heal anything? No, but it certainly does make them feel much better, sometimes instantly. Different kinds of ways like that we can prove here in the physical world that both physical and non-physical are definitely existent. Like Roberta said, we can't not eat. We do have a physical set of rules. We'll die if we don't. But we also have an influence over them, and this non-physical surely exists here in our body and when we talk about our health.
Yes, as Tish alluded, our body is a bridge between the physical rule set, which is physical matter, and the intelligent universe, which is energy. And it's just such a fascinating world to dive into. In the beginning of EMF, one of the modules is how the world really works, and that kind of set the stage for all of this, like really opening us up to the awareness of how, the non-physical affects our physical world, and becoming so aware and connected with that we could implement it now in our lives and in every area of our life. So when your body feels supported, aligned, and nourished and safe, like it's not in stress all the time, then it becomes a perfect vessel through which the universe can guide and empower you. Like Tisha shared many times, if we don't have a healthy body, we can't live out, this expression in the world. And that's really a key factor in transforming in the physical realm. And so our tip for today in that realm is to create one daily ritual that signals safety to your nervous system. I work with the stress response, and that's one of the stressors that I work with in every single person that I test and create nutritional protocols for. Is stress is always managed with the program that I give them. Like, that's a non-negotiable, because without the stress response being calmed in the system, the body doesn't heal. It's not in a healing state. It's in a sympathetic dominant state, which is more like fight or flight. And in that state, the body isn't programmed to heal. So we have to figure out how to calm it down and down regulate it. So if we think of doing one thing that would calm our nervous system every day, that could be, a meditation. It could be, like Tish mentioned, journaling, just breathing is, a very simple way to just stop and let the body settle for a second. I tell people that their brains get very tired and foggy and overwhelmed or headaches. And I said, our brain, we're taught that the minute we open our eyes, our brain is engaged for like 16 hours and we never stop and breathe or just close our eyes and just give ourselves a break, right? I didn't. I remember just pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'd get headaches, and I never made the connection that I never stopped and gave that organ, the brain, a rest. And it really does need to be, relaxed. And when we can do that with our brain, then our whole system can then, down regulate and get calmer. So
the breath work and meditation have been significant practices that have just changed how I feel in my body on a regular basis. And it has been amazing for me. So that leads us into our last section, which is the how to live more free in our soul realm. This is really about trusting the non-physical. Now we're going to dive deep into the non-physical belief. Without this belief, if you believe we only have a physical rule set, then you believe we're just our bodies. In other words, that there's no souls, nothing exists except for the physical realm. And I certainly feel empowered and feel like that can't possibly be true at this at this point. When we see all of the evidence that adds up to this non-physical rule set. And the more we play this game in that mindset, as I sort of suggested, the more proof I'm able to accumulate. When we acknowledge a non-physical rule set, this is where freedom exists and expands. You're no longer isolated in a random universe. Instead, you're in a relationship with something larger than yourself. Freedom comes from releasing the need to know how everything will unfold and instead committing to who you are becoming, as we have talked about many times, in concentrating more so on that non-physical than the physical. Living free means choosing faith over fear. It is a great excuse, especially if we live in a friendly universe and we've chosen that mindset, then I know I have nothing to fear. If I take that one step further, if we talk about, the death of our physical body, if I believe that there is non-physical and I have a soul, then nothing really dies. I know that I will be okay somewhere else, or whatever that looks like, whatever you believe then. So it's easy to lean into faith then and a belief of this higher power. It's not blind belief, but experimental truth built through alignment, integrity, and surrender. Some of those proofs that we were talking about that you can build up. In one of our talks, I think we talk about the journal of positive affirmations. Basically, when I've tried to play this game and influence my reality and influence what's happening in my life, and it shows up sometimes in incredible ways. For some of us, if you believe more in a physical world, this will tell you that word surrender that I just said is, really a highlight. If you hear it and you instantly, your ego becomes engaged and you feel like, wait, no, surrender means like releasing control, then you're probably leaning a little bit more towards those physical rule sets because you have this need to like control things. You don't want to relinquish that. Versus somebody that hears that has been living in this growth an empowering mindset that we're talking about, then surrender is more about, I trust in something bigger than me. I trust in, a power that's taking care of me. And so surrender means I'm just going to flow with the river. I don't have to paddle all the time. It means I can flow. And what a freedom, feeling that is. When we can set our egos aside, synchronicities increase and support appears. And you can find comfort in knowing that you are not alone and flow with a higher, friendly intelligence.
Awesome. I love this realm. And I think about, as you were sharing, how, scientifically, we are over 99% non-physical matter, which is hard to wrap our head around. That's another conversation, but we're less than 1% physical matter, tangible physical matter. So the huge majority of our being and our existence is non-physical. So that actually is more real than what we're seeing in the physical world. There's a huge unlimited universe out there with just unlimited influence, power, and possibilities that really is the dominant part of our existence. We just can't see it with our physical eyes. So when we make this transition, we start looking through spiritual eyes or through our non-physical eyes and start getting acclimated to this whole new world that's out there. And what you shared about, with death, I have a whole different relationship with death and how I see it. So much more empowering. I used to, be extremely, we all get sad and then we feel there's loss and then there's grief. And some people carry grief for a lifetime, some tragic loss and they just can't seem to let go of it. But I have so much more peace. Like you said, we're not going to ever go away because we're not physical, but mostly by nature. And when we transition, I feel too that we're just always going to be somewhere. We're not going to ever die. And the Bible says that too, I was such an avid Bible studier, and it just makes so much more sense to me. There's no victory in death for the dark side or whatever you want to call it, because we never die. And so when I, now I've had people that have passed away in my life, I'm just at peace and at ease, and I'm actually happy for them because I do believe they're in a much more, dynamic place than in this physical world. So yeah, it was just changed the joy level so dramatically. I don't fear loss, like I used to.
There is a movie that my family loves called Hook, which is based on, the Peter Pan. And one of the things he says at one point while they're battling Hook and Peter Pan is, to die would be a great adventure. And that's just one of the things that sort of has stuck with me because, then we get to know what really happens since we aren't able to remember at this point, and just explains all of the experiences people have had of feeling other spirits close to you and feeling that energy that surrounds us all of the time. There's just so much proof that I feel like at this point it is undeniable that there is this intelligence, there is this power that is always around us. And it's just a matter of tuning in.
Beautiful.
And so that brings us to our soul realm tip for today's discussion. And I'm going to invite you to have an experiment of trust. Choose one area of your life where you normally have been keeping control over. Consciously release the need to manage the outcome and say, I'm willing to be guided instead of needing to control. Then stand back and watch. Attempt to figure out what surrender feels like, in just belief and faith and without attachment. See what happens. How, life responds to you.
And like we shared, this is just such a small part of the Elite Mentorship Forum and the whole process of understanding this. And so, it's a big step for a lot of people to say, we're just going to let go of control now. It's taken us, years to get to this point too, that I'm at least with all the work I've done. And I've only done EMF in the last 3 years, but just knowing that it's a process, and this journey, guides us into that freedom, more and more each day, basically, and the more we stay connected to it. So it's certainly a win-win. It can only create more joy, freedom, and, possibility in our life. So in summary of the 3 areas that we just talked about, in the mind, if you recognize that we live in an intelligent universe with a rule set and then align with that rule set, you're no longer fighting life, you're learning how to work with it. And I think all of us could breathe a sigh of relief at that concept. Think, wow, life could be so much easier and so much more enjoyable if we can step into this new way of thinking and being. So in the body realm, you cannot meditate your way out of dehydration or self-love your way out of chronic nutritional deficiencies. Your biology is not just mechanical, it's also responsive to the non-physical influence. So that's where those 2 worlds come together. And like Tish said, in such a perfectly visual way to understand those 2 different dynamics. And then in the soul realm, when we acknowledge a non-physical rule set, freedom expands. You're no longer isolated in a random universe. You're in a relationship with something larger, a life lived in partnership with source rather than in resistance to it. So letting go of that control, living in the flow, waking up every day, feeling at ease in the universe, and then having that empowering relationship with death. It just means that, there's no end point that I'm dreading or, resisting. Because like Peter says, if we fear death, we'll never live life fully. We're always trying to navigate something and control something around that, but just living fully. And when our time is over, it's over. And knowing that, I feel that we get to go on to a better and more dynamic experience.
So like we normally do, as we have mentioned, this is a small, tiny little taste, if you will, of our full transformation program, which is known as the Elite Mentorship Forum. It has changed my life. I cannot advocate for it enough. And as trainers of it, Roberta and I invite you that if this has stirred something inside of you and you want to take control, you want to learn how to lean into your power more decisively, then please reach out. We have new cohorts that are starting shortly, and we invite you to reach out and have a talk. Our curiosity calls are free and only take a few minutes of your time. And what can it hurt if this could possibly change your life? What do you got to lose?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the coach that, onboarded me into the Elite Mentorship Forum program, because I was doing one of Peter's other programs at the time. And I, was like, I'm content with this. I loved it. It was, just was great, and he just, kept reaching out to me so graciously and giving me his time and just helping me walk through and find out what was best for me. And now I look back and, I can't thank him enough for his persistence and his ability to help me see, what I really wanted in life and how this could, bring that about for me. Like it's way more than I ever could have imagined. So super grateful for that influence. So yeah, like Tish said, don't be afraid to reach out, and we'd love to have a conversation. And then we'll just close today with a quote that says, "You are not a lone swimmer in the ocean of life. You're carried by the current the moment you stop resisting it." And so we just welcome you into a better life, more at ease and joyful life through the Elite Mentorship Forum. So thank you for your time and attention here today. And like, share, and subscribe, and help us share our message.
We hope to see you next time on our Take Charge of Your Life discussion.